Welcome to Chapter 1 of the Jatco jf010e transmission. This chapter is a brief introduction of the unit, including vehicle application, identification, and basic function. My name is Jared Warren, and I will be your host for this course. It's a great day to fix transmission, so let's get started. The Jatco CVT jf010e transmission is also called the jf010e or jf010b. Nissan uses the jf010 A or B numbers, and Jatco is the one that built this transmission. So for this course, we're going to go ahead and use the jf010e for the name of the transmission. The jf010e was introduced in the United States around 2003. It came out first in the Nissan Murano. Later on, it came out in the Jeep. And also in 2007, the Jatco introduced the jf010b transmission, which has very little changes to pulleys and valve body. They basically are the exact same transmission. Main reason for the CVT transmission's design is fuel economy and driver comfort. It seems like everything nowadays is all based on fuel economy, and all of our changes in transmissions is based on fuel economy. No exceptions here. When you drive this car with the CVT transmission, you'll feel no gear change. Under heavy accelerations, it'll actually feel like the transmission is slipping, higher RPMs. To us, many of us transmission builders, it just feels like the transmission is slipping all the time. We're not used to not having the transmission shift to the next gear, so it is strange at first driving these for the first few times. To the customer, they don't feel any shift, and it's a nice, smooth driving car. So to them, they like this transmission. So in the Altima, had the transmission come out in 2007, 2012 would be the jf010b. And then in the Maxima, 2007 to 2015, is the jf010b. Murano has both the jf010A and the B transmission. In roughly 2007, 2008 split year, they changed over to the B style of transmission. The Nissan Quest also got this transmission in 2011 to 2014. We've seen the transmission in the Infiniti and the JX35 in 2013. The Jeep Compass in 2007 had the CVT. And the Patriot, also 2007-2011, had the jf010A. So if you're dealing with cores and you're dealing with used transmissions, you'll definitely want to check this number on the top of the bell housing here. It's right here at the middle of the case halves. It's a engraved number. Sometimes it's kind of quite hard to see. Sometimes if this number is eroded away, you could take like a pencil and a piece of paper and kind of scribble across it, and sometimes you can make out the numbers that way. So you use the last 5 numbers here. So this one here is going to be a 1XE OA, and we found it 2009 to 2010 Nissan Murano, 2-wheel drive, 3.5 liter, and the ratio for the final drive is 5.173. Some other helpful information on the rear cover here where this white circle is. You'll have a casting code. This one is a AK0 number 1. A lot of times your hard part suppliers will ask you this casting code number to get you the rear cover and pulley setup. It's a good way of getting the whole setup and make sure you get the correct one. So the number on the top, the last 5 numbers are here on the case numbers here, this row here. Let's just take one and see what it's what it can tell for us. If we take this one here, 1XE3D, we know it's out of a Nissan Altima, 2-wheel drive, 3.5 liter. Reverse ratio is 1.766, and the final drive is 5.173. Notice this is only for the 2013 model. If we put this number to 2011, 2012, we may have an issue. You see that 2011, 2012 both have different numbers. They also have different reverse ratios and final drive ratios. So this number on top of the case, you'll want to get used to using it. Use this chart to see which transmission you have and which vehicle it fits in. Best part of the CVT transmission is learning the component application chart. So easiest one out there. Everybody can remember this one. In reverse, you have your reverse clutch on. In forward, you have your forward clutch. It's that simple. Solenoid strategy is a little bit different for this transmission. It's not like a 4L6DE or something that has a couple shift solenoids and they cycle on and off for your gear change. The CVT has a ratio control motor, or a stepper motor, some people call it. And what the stepper motor is, basically a motor that has a plunger sticking out of it, and it extends or extracts in and out as the TCM's controlling it. So what the TCM's doing is turning 4 coils in the stepper motor on and off to make it turn, which extends and extracts the plunger. And that's what helps change the pulley ratio. Pressure control solenoid A regulates line pressure. Pressure control solenoid B regulates secondary pressure to the secondary pulleys. The torque converter clutch solenoid controls the switch valve for lockup operation. Then you have the lockup and the select solenoid. It controls the lockup, also controls the forward and reverse engagement. Gear ratios, a couple different gear ratios in reverse, 1.750 and 1.766. The final drive ratio is 4.878 or 5.173. There is no listing of information on the drive ratio. On scan tool data, we came up with 2.34 to 1 and then 0.58 overdrive ratio. Let's talk about the sensors on the outside of the transmission. There's not many sensors on the outside on this unit. They're mostly on the inside. You have your secondary speed sensor here on the back. It reads off the secondary pulley output gear. So this is the VSS and the secondary speed sensor. And then you have your main wiring harness over here, the main left. This connector has a fair amount of issues. The pins are very tiny. I've seen a lot of broken pins in this unit. All the other sensors, like the speed sensor for the primary, range switch, and pressure switches, are all built inside this transmission. And we'll talk about these a little bit later. Pressure tap ID. On the rear cover here, we have your secondary pressure. Then in the front of the trans, facing towards the radiator, you have your forward clutch tap, your line pressure tap. The cooler out is the front fitting, the one closest to the bell housing. Cooler return is towards the rear. And then you have your primary pressure right here next to your case connector. Line pressure on this trans is roughly 108 psi at an idle, and stall it's 826.5 psi roughly. So if you are checking pressures on this transmission, you definitely need to make sure you have a psi of at least 1000 rated gauge and hose. I would recommend transducer. That's the safest and most accurate way of going. Shifter positions, it's just like anything else for the most part. In park, there's no power flow, so none of the clutches are on. The park paw is locking the secondary pulley to the case, which locks the transfer shaft and the differential so the car will not roll. Of course, the engine can be started in park, and you can remove the ignition key. In reverse, we have the reverse clutch on, and the vehicle is operating in a rearward direction. In neutral, we have no clutches on, no power flow. Engine can be started, the key cannot be removed. And then we have the regular drive position. This position, all the ratio changes will change on its own. You'll have your lockup, apply and release, and this is the best normal daily driving position that you need to put the transmission in to drive normal to get the maximum fuel economy and normal operation. If you wanted like a sport mode, or if you're maybe in the hills, a lot of turns, that kind of thing, and you wanted some engine braking and wanted some a little bit of control of engine speed, you can put it over into the manual mode and use your tap shifters. Buttons basically upshift and downshift. Then the transmission will actually jump to preset ratios and feel like almost a transmission that shifts like normal. Here's an exploded view. Thank you, Whatever It Takes, for letting us use their exploded view. They have a wonderful CVT catalog. Has a lot of breakdowns of the pulleys, valve body breakdown, sensor locations. They did a very well job on their CVT catalog. Also stocking a fair amount of great parts. Every day it seems like we're getting more and more of these CVT parts available to us and to the aftermarket. So thanks, Whatever It Takes, for allowing us to use this picture. Kind of talk about the transmission a little bit here. In the front bell housing here, we have our front bell housing. Have our speed sensor mounted up top, like we talked about earlier, for the secondary pulley. It reads off this little gear right here for the secondary pulley output gear. We have a differential, and the transfer shaft is all up in the front case half. And you have your pump up front, of course, your forward clutch, your gear train. You have one planet, one sun gear, and your reverse clutches come in from the front of the main case. In the rear cover, you have your rear cover, and there's some retaining bolts here in the back that you do not want to take out. You want to pull the pulleys, chain, or excuse me, belt, so all in one piece. Kind of watch out, these pulleys are quite heavy when we're sliding it out of the case. Before you pull the pulleys out of the case, you'll definitely want to make sure you pull the valve body first, because you have to get this little ratio control arm removed from this follower here that's in the rear cover, or you will break it. So pull your valve body before you pull the pulley section apart. Some main components and power flow of the transmission itself. We're not to get into the clutch apply right now. We're just going to skip past the clutch apply and go to your pulleys. So you're going to get power from whichever clutch is on onto the primary pulley. The primary pulley is going to transmit power through the belt. The belt's going to send power down the secondary pulley, which has your output gear on it. The output gear is meshed with the transfer shaft. Transfer shaft has a pinion on it to turn the differential and out to the axles and tires. This section here is the clutch section, so let's go over that a little bit. First, ID some of the components that's on here. Out here, this is the main case, and you have your forward, or excuse me, your reverse clutch and clutches. This purple right here is the planet housing that is splined with the reverse clutches. It holds the planet small pinion. The forward drum, which is this brownish color here, it has a ring gear that is snap ringed into the end of the forward clutch. The forward clutch, there it is. Forward clutch here comes around and is connected right to the input shaft. The input shaft, of course, is going into the torque converter. So power flow for reverse is quite simple. We have your converter transmitting power to your input shaft. Input shaft is turning your forward clutch. The forward clutch is not on in reverse, so this clutch is slipping right here. But it is turning this ring gear. This reverse clutch is on, so it's holding this purple planet The only planet in the unit. It's holding that still and holding this gear stationary. So as the ring gear is spinning, it's turning the small gear, and then that forces the sun gear to turn the opposite direction for reverse operation. The sun gear right here is splined to this pink is your primary pulley. So it's a direct link in between here out to the pulley, through the belt, transfer shaft, and differential to get your reverse operation. Now for forward power flow, not much changes. We just turn off the reverse clutch right here, so this clutch is slipping. And we're locking the forward clutch on right here. So we're rotating the input clutch, which is turning the drum assembly. The forward clutch is on, so it's locked. It turns the hub, the forward hub, which is all one piece to the sun gear. The forward sun gear is splined to your primary pulley here, and the power is transmitted out the pulley to the secondary pulley and out to the diff. This will conclude our Chapter 1 introduction of the Jatco jf010e transmission. We want to thank you for participating in Virtual Training Solutions powered by ATRA. Until next time, let's keep fixing transmissions together.